In today's economy, more people than ever are looking to buy and sell businesses. But how do you do it? Welcome to the Deal Board, presented by Transworld Business Advisors. Straight talk about real deals and real people. Listen to stories, interviews, and expert advice to help your business sale, merger, or acquisition process. Now, here are your business exit experts, Andy and JT.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Transworld Deal Board, Transworld Business Advisors. My name is JT, and this is my co-host, Andy Cagnetta. We're glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. We've got some great episode content to deliver to you today. Really excited about our topic of the day, which is real deal breakers and the transactions that actually fall apart. Nobody likes that part, Andy. Nobody likes it when the transaction falls apart.
Nobody likes when deals fall apart. It happens. It happens more often than it should. And we're going to talk about those reasons right now.
That's it. Exactly right. Exactly. So, hey, stay tuned because we got some great content for you. A couple of different things that you want to think about. These are the real deal breakers that you want to avoid so that your transaction doesn't actually fall apart. So let's get started.
Yeah, let's start with the first one. I mean, and I think this is a big one. I always tell people, deals don't sell for a few reasons, and one of them is this, that the seller has unrealistic expectations to begin with. And I think maybe all sellers do, right?
Come on, what are you talking about? Their expectations are totally in line with what's real in the marketplace, what they want, the timing that they want it in, the structure that they want done. No seller comes in with unrealistic expectations, really?
Yeah, so they come in with the unrealistic expectations, and really it's up to the broker to make sure that they get in line over time. But if they don't, it certainly is a huge hindrance for deals not to ever happen.
No, this is true. You know, it's they can start falling apart even before the deal begins. And that those are in the early conversations that the agent, the advisor will have with that seller to make sure that they get them realistic in what they start with. What's the business going to sell for? Like the seller always has a number in their mind. Oftentimes you'll hear, Andy, you've probably heard it hundreds of times over the last 30 years. But my business is worth this. Or if the guy comes in and does this, it could do this much more, which means it's
right.
Worth even more than that. So dispel that for us, for the people who are listening here today. Why is that reality?
Yeah, well, people hear rumors. They watch things like SpaceX go IPO, and they watch all these things. SpaceX is losing $4 billion, but still it's worth $1 trillion. I mean, the reality is the marketplace, and eventually the marketplace will speak. And the good news for everybody out there in the world is the marketplace is pretty defined at this point. The banks are doing valuations. There's lots of online information for sellers to understand their true value. But the value is not what your log cabin will cost in Montana. It's not what your buddies are telling you on the golf course. It's not what your girlfriends are telling you at, when you're at a tennis camp or playing pickleball. It's what your business is actually worth to the buyer in the marketplace.
Well, and sometimes you'll even have your CPA who wants to do the right thing, but they're basing it on not market data. They're not looking at comparables. They're not thinking about the right multiples, because each industry has its own multiples, right? So there's not a broad sweeping multiple for every single industry. Insurance is going to be maybe a multiple of what your actually revenue is, but a restaurant might be only a percentage of what your revenue is, et cetera. So every one of those plays into it. Every one of those factors plays into it. So getting the right number up front, that's probably the first unrealistic expectation. I think the second unrealistic expectation sometimes is how quickly can it happen?
Yeah. We had someone come to us and say, well, I have 30 days left on my lease. Can you sell my business? And we actually have another deal that where a seller got a job, and she got a job with a very, good organization that's bringing her on full time. She was a management association management professional, had several associations. We said we could sell that, but if you want to sell it in 60 days or whatever it was, you're going to have to price it right. And so there's going to have to be those expectations. Do you want it quick? Do you want it fast? Or do you want it done good?
I was
Pick
just
two.
going to ask that, right? Do you want the most money? Do you want it done quickly, or do you want a quality buyer? Because you can't have, what was it, always pick two of the three, whichever it is that you might be able to have. You can pick two of the three. So
yeah, and there's unrealistic expectations on the buy side as well. And we're seeing that. And there's a lot of education out there. There's a lot of gurus out there that are talking about what businesses should sell for or what kind of businesses they should buy. And there's a lot of unrealistic expectations on the buy side as well.
Well, and I think it's also true, even you could have the same business. I know we've talked about this in previous episodes. You could have the same business, same industry, and two businesses doing similar revenue, et cetera, but they could sell for markedly different prices or values based on owner involvement, how strong is the structure and the documentation of the processes in place so that when you pull the owner out, that business can continue to run on by itself. There's lots of other factors that are going to play into it. So that's probably number one. Number two, let's move to that one because this is still along the lines of the money a little bit here. But what happens when the financials don't hold up during due diligence?
Yeah, I mean, anything that happens in due diligence will create, we always say the seeds of inconsistency grow wildly when they're planted. And so one inconsistency, one thing that is not correct can make the buyer doubt the whole deal, which is really unfortunate. So, we want to be very, very careful about what we're providing to the buyer as far as information to make sure it's correct. So if financials don't hold up during due diligence, and then you have advisors like professionals, like all of a sudden the CPA is involved, and the CPA sees something bad and says, "I told you so." This guy's not telling you the truth, and it could be one little thing that maybe is not really important, but that inconsistency can, Okay, and if you talk about like people are overly aggressive sometimes when they're doing, these recasting.
Recast, yeah, that's true because of what the financial records get reviewed. If something comes out, then they're not only going to doubt that something that came out, but they're going to start doubting other things now. Like, well, what else don't I really know? And I was just working through some things that Eli was working with back in the office in the Western Carolinas. And he was talking about, I've given it to them to review. And I said, Eli, the longer you put these things back in the hands of the buyer, the more questions are going to come up with. Now, not that you should be hiding anything, but now they're starting to ask questions that they're not even relevant anymore because they found little chinks in the armor that they're questioning this piece or questioning. They start questioning everything now. And that's going to make the deal harder to get across the finish line.
Yeah. And anything, we could have true numbers. The numbers could be perfect, but all of a sudden they go in there and there's one customer, or there was one customer last year for this big job they were doing. And now all of a sudden that job's not going to happen again in the future, or something. They come in and their number one seller was chicken wings. And now all of a sudden chicken wings are 3 times or 4 times the cost that they used to be. So the margins are going down.
Yeah, so if the margins are declining, if there's revenue customer concentration that's hinged on one or two specific clients, that there's going to be some worry there. What happens if that client goes away? If the reporting's not right, if the ad backs are overly aggressive, as you mentioned, even if it's solid, that uncertainty starts creating hesitation on the part of the buyer. So Number one, unrealistic expectations from the beginning, either on price, deal structure, timing, etc. Number two, financials don't hold up under due diligence. Number three, communication. So this is a process, Andy. Like, you just talked about that one client wants to be sold in 30 days. That doesn't happen very often. These are the deals that take 6, 8, 10 months to get across the finish line. How important do you think communication has to be to make sure that both parties are consistent and you don't kill momentum by having bad communication if it breaks down?
Yeah, I was just about to say, it's kind of like rowing a boat. It's like rowing those races where there's like 8 people rowing, and there's the coxswain at the head going stroke, stroke. Right. So we're the coxswain saying stroke, stroke, stroke. And if the seller or the buyer or even the attorneys or the accountants or the bank, they're out of sync with the deal and they're not keeping the momentum going, time kills all deals. We say it all the time. And, communication, And people get worried. Like, why isn't the seller calling back? Why isn't the buyer calling back? Are they not committed to the deal? I mean, a lot of these things happen.
That's a big word, that whole commitment piece right there. And sometimes when time just goes by and there's silence, there's no communication, then people start to fill that void with negative suppositions. Well, this must be happening, that must be happening. Really, what you want to make sure is that you're communicating on a regular basis. Even if you don't have something specific that needs to be said or done, you're still touching base, giving encouragement. We're working on this. We're still moving forward. That part there really has to take place, because the deals don't collapse overnight. I mean, it's not all of a sudden we wake up one day and tomorrow that deal's not going to work anymore. It's a slow fade is what winds up happening in some of these circumstances.
People lose confidence. You know, one thing happens, the other thing happens. People start, you know, referencing, you know, the astrology charts. Well, it wasn't in the cards, or, you know, the world is trying to tell me something that I shouldn't buy this business. You know, the universe is talking. You know, you don't want that to happen. So you got to keep the momentum going. If you're a seller, that's why it's so important. You know, it might sound like your business broker is being a pain in the butt, trying to get everything set up front and trying to get all this documentation from you. But we know when the banks get involved, the due diligence list, the checklist, the punch list that come out during this they're huge. And if we don't have all that information for us to provide, we're going to constantly be coming back to you, and the buyers are going to be waiting for it, or the banks are going to be waiting for it. And it just, confidence starts to slip. So
I think it's an excellent point too, in that you're dealing with that agent, that advisor up front, helping you put that list together. Like, here's all the stuff that we need to get. The reason they're asking for it up front is because the time to start gathering it is not once you have an offer on the table. Once the offer's on the table, you want to do everything you can to keep that ball moving down the field really steadily, not slowing down. Or if you can't respond right away, you're not providing the information that they need. I can think of a deal that fell apart because the buyers were asking and the sellers were taking their sweet time producing the documentation, and finally the buyers are like, "Yeah, we're not doing this anymore." They start to feel like you're hiding something, and it may be legitimate why you can't get it. You know, you certainly get around March, April time periods, and the accountants are flooded with tax season, et cetera. They can't get stuff back right away. But the buyer's not thinking of that. The buyer's thinking, why is it taking so long? What are they possibly hiding? So you don't want that to happen. Yeah. So that's good. Those are three big ones.
Yeah, three big ones. And I think this is a great time to take a quick break to talk about a deal. Let's throw in a listing of the week right now.
Okay. So you hear what he said. It's time for listing of the week.
Need help buying or selling a business? Transworld has over 1,000 brokers in 250 offices worldwide. Visit tworld.com or call 800-205-7605.
Hey, JT, do you know what time it is?
Money time?
Almost. It's time for listing of the week.
Hey, it's Eric Straus from Transworld Business Advisors of New York, and have a fantastic listing of the week to talk to you about today. It's a virtual events business. Could be located anywhere. Happens to be in the mountain states right now, but could be anywhere. So imagine you're a Fortune 500 company. You have a department that has 50 people and they're distributed throughout the US or even the world, right? And you want to do a team building event. How do you do a team building event for a distributed workforce? So you hire this company and you organize a cake pop decorating day, say Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Everybody gets on a Zoom Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern with a chef who shows them how to do cake pop decorating. So this company gets the names of all your employees, sends them the box, gets the chef, organizes the Zoom, and does this team building exercise for your distributed workforce. It's a very cool business, started during COVID, and it continues to grow now that we're, 5 years out of COVID. 1.1 million of revenues, nice margins, 450,000 of SDE, asking $1.3 million, including inventory. I think it's a great opportunity. Glad to be able to bring it to you. Thanks.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. And we're talking about why deals break down, why transactions actually fall apart. We just had three great reasons: unrealistic expectations by the buyer or the seller, The financials don't hold up during due diligence for one reason or another. Even if they're perfect, they don't hold up. And then number 3, communication breakdown eventually kills the momentum and the deal starts to falter. So the other thing that happens during these deals, number 4, is the buyer starts to become aware of how much the owner is dependent upon during the business operation of the business. And during the due diligence, they start seeing all the things that the owner does. And it starts to create.
If every decision has to run through the owner, that's not a good thing.
Yeah. And especially mid-market transactions. I mean, private equity's coming in, and we actually had a deal, falter for this. And the seller went back and said, you know what? They're right. I need to hire a president of my company, because everything came through. He was a type A person, and his company was running like a top, but it only ran because he was running it. And the deal actually fell apart. So, you want to make sure as a seller that you have the proper people in place so this doesn't happen to you.
And that's a big part of even preparation. Oftentimes as a seller, you think, okay, I think I want to sell my business. You may be premature in coming to the market right away. You might want to take a little time. Our folks at Exit Factor help with that, preparing the business for sale, getting it so you get the most possible value out of it, but doing the strategic planning part of it that really helps get the business so that it's not owner dependent, that you got processes in place. You're not the only person making the decisions. You maybe have a layer of management there that the buyer is going to be able to rely on when they come in and take over the business, that it's going to continue to run. Sometimes it's kind of like the business owners wear it as a badge of honor, like I'm the one that makes all the decisions. That's not a badge you want to be wearing. Like, we don't need no stinking badges. Get that off your chest and let some other people take the place of in those roles, so that, do you ever take a vacation? You hear owners, I haven't taken a vacation in 4 years. Don't tell that to a buyer.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Or they're saying bad news things that you really don't need to say. You know how hard it is to run employees. You know how hard it is to deal with suppliers. You know how hard it is to deal with the insurance companies. It's like, everybody knows it's hard to run a business. You don't need to pile on that.
Everybody doesn't do it.
So don't raise red flags that aren't there. And I think your point, just to finish your point, which I thought was a great point of Exit Factor, and having a strategic plan, is having a manual. And, it doesn't necessarily need to be in a book, but having a process and a manual to be able to leave that behind, and showing the people the flow of the business. I think that you could, even if you're the chief cook and bottle washer, if you have the ability to show everybody how your business is operated and you have an operational plan, I think that could go a long way.
That makes sense. Documentation is worthwhile. Not owner dependent is worthwhile. Having the people in place that can make the decisions for you, that's all worthwhile. And those types of things right there are going to give the buyer more comfort that they know that everything doesn't rest on your shoulders as the seller. And that takes you to number 5. That's decision fatigue and the last minute emotion. Like, buying and selling a business is not an emotional thing at all, do you think?
Yeah, of course. Right. So, we literally had a seller recently check himself into a hospital, days before closing, called us up and said, and hadn't slept in days. So, and he basically had a mental breakdown, and he told us the deal was off. This was a Friday afternoon. He told us this very large deal. And by Sunday, he'd gotten some sleep. They gave him some, medications to help calm him down. So it's a very emotional time for buyers and sellers. There's risk involved. It's funny. One of my business brokers used to hand out M&Ms to people and basically say, these are worry pills. And he's like, whenever you're having buyer or seller remorse, take one of these.
Take one of these.
And because
take 2 and call me in the morning.
Acknowledging that it's going to happen. you're going to have fear. I mean, this is scary. This is a risk, and it's well worth it. But you just have to understand that there's a lot of emotion in these deals, and if everybody can recognize that, you can get through it.
Yeah, it's not just financial. It is big emotional. It's a big emotional move on both sides, both for the seller and for the buyer. So, they can second guess leaving. I know that a lot of folks, when they first think about selling a business, one of the first questions they'll get asked is, what are you going to do after it sells? Because the seller needs to have a game plan for when this is over. Oftentimes their identity is wrapped up in the business. When this is over, who am I going to be? What am I going to go do? What am I going to become? I know it's a big part of the exit planning side. Again, Exit Factor helps with that part as well. But having that, so there is no second guess. Like, this is clearly what I'm going to do, and I need to be able to exit from this in order to get into that next season of life. And then on the other side, buyers, sometimes they hesitate because of risk. They get nervous about that. I've left my job, or I'm leaving my job to take on this business. I have this steady income, and now I'm not necessarily, because I'm going into something that's brand new and I don't really understand it or know it. There's a lot that's at play. And you are sometimes, as the advisor, you can be a counselor. I love the M&Ms. That's a great.
And I would also say that, buyers and sellers have to realize being an entrepreneur is not a usual thing for a lot of people. So your brother, sister, mother, father, accountant, attorney, most people are risk adverse, and you're going to take risk for your rewards, right? You're going out there to, right. And so everybody is going to tell you not to do it. You have to go into this understanding. My brother is an attorney, and he used to always say, I wouldn't do that if I were you, Andy. And I'm like, well, good thing you're not me, because I take risk. I mean, becoming a business owner is taking risk. And you have to understand that not most people, the vast majority of people, are not comfortable enough to do that. So you have to realize that you're different. And I think it's important to realize that when you're going through a deal, there's going to be a bunch of people telling you that you were. There was one person that told me I was crazy for buying Transworld. He said, he says, I think it's going to work out for you because you're a hard worker, but I think you're nuts. So
you should call that guy and send him a card and say, hey, thanks.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So there they are. Those are 5 real deal breakdowns. Why transactions actually fall apart. That's the unrealistic expectation from day one. Financials don't hold up during the due diligence process. Perhaps communication breaks down. That could kill some momentum. The owner dependency piece really raises a lot of red flags. And then, of course, number 5 is that decision fatigue, the last minute emotion when the buyers and sellers are second guessing, or families and advisors get involved later on and start bringing in planting the seeds of doubt, and you go, oh, that's not gonna help our scenario. So great session. Well, what? We know that many deals don't fall apart just because of numbers. They fail because someone else becomes uncomfortable making that final decision. So things to think about. All right. Well, we did a listing of the week. You know what that means, Andy? You know what time it is?
It means we actually do close deals, and we have a deal of the week.
Time for the deal of the week. We'll be right back.
Hey, Andy, do you know what time it is?
What time?
It's time for Deal of the Week.
Ring the bell.
Hi there. This is Eli Tatem with Transworld Business Advisors in the Western Carolinas office. And I want to talk about a deal that we just sold. It was a machine shop. It's been around for about 20 years. And the seller originally bought it from the man who started the company. He worked for that original owner, and then they ran it for the next 9 years or so, and now he's ready to retire. So he was the guy who was contacting the engineers at the manufacturing companies they were doing work for, 2 other machinists in the shop, and then his wife kept the books for the business. And so we actually found a buyer who was a husband and wife team, which was a really nice fit. Both of the buyers were engineers, I should say. And so they actually had some good contacts in their network who are employed at some of those manufacturing companies that the machine shop does work for. So they'll be able to grow the business right away. leveraging those existing relationships, both that the seller had and the buyer knows, and they're really looking forward to it. They have some level of machining background, but really just understand the process of how the engineers at the different manufacturing companies for the clients think and how they communicate. And so they're really looking forward to it. They did use an SBA loan. It was about a $250,000 sale. And we were able to refer them over to the lender, a local lender to the Greenville area as well. So all in all, really good buyer, really good seller, pretty smooth overall. Took maybe a little bit longer to get there than we thought it would, but we're thankful we got it done. Again, this is Eli Tatem with Transworld. If you want to contact me, my email is etatem, that's ETATEM @tworld.com. And my phone number is 864-527-5995. Thanks.
Thanks again for joining the Transworld Deal Board, where today's episode was Real Deal Breakdown. These are the 5 things that you can avoid as a seller when you're bringing your business to market. Tune in again for the next episode, and we'll look forward to seeing you here at Transworld Business Advisors and the Deal Board. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the show today. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends on social media. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting app. If you have questions, would like to appear, or have suggestions for topics for the show, get in contact with us through our website, thedealboardpodcast.com.